501 kilograms on the deadlift is a number that people have been talking about for a long time, ever since Thor broke Eddie's 500 by 1 kilo. Now, the last few years, we have been dominated by talks of 505, 505 this, 505 that, people getting close, people not getting close at all. 505 in a suit is what has dominated us for the last few years, and now Rogue and the Arnolds have thrown their hat into the ring and gone, screw all that, we want 501 raw on the elephant bar for $101,000. Will anyone get it? Will we even see anyone attempt it? Is this enough time for the athletes? And is the bounty big enough to get the people excited? We're going to talk about all of that in this video. But before we do, if you're new here, go down below, like the video, click subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But let's jump right into the whole topic of 501 kilos at the Arnolds this year. Now, if you have been living under the strongman rock and you don't really understand what the elephant bar is, what the difference between the 505 in the suit and the 501 raw is, I'm going to go over a brief explanation of that. Obviously, all of you hardcore strongman fans will know about this and will have discussed this at length with multiple people, but you might not be the most into strongman. You might be a casual viewer. So let's talk through exactly the difference. So 505 is what Giants Live have been pushing towards ever since Thor and Eddie deadlifted 500 and 501 in a suit on a standard deadlift bar from a standard height. Now, the rules for the 505 is you're allowed deadlift suits, you're allowed figure eight straps, and it is on a standard deadlift bar with standard calibrated plates. Now, where the Arnolds and Rogue here have gone a bit different is they want the lift to be raw with no figure eight straps, figure six straps only, and on the elephant bar, which is a much longer and more whippy deadlift bar. So what this means is without a suit, it's going to be much harder to initially break that lift off the floor. Without figure eight straps, it's going to be much more important to get your straps right and make your grip strong. And with the extra whip of the elephant bar, you're going to have to be a much smoother puller, but it's going to make it a tad easier off the floor as the bar is going to come up gradually and the weight off the floor gradually. So it kind of counteracts the lack of the suit with a little bit more whip to help you people off the floor. But by no means is that take away from how impressive it would be if someone lifts 501 raw on the elephant bar. Some people find it harder. I think the general consensus is that it's a little bit easier than a normal deadlift bar, but certainly it is going to be an exciting one. So hopefully that explains the difference between the standard deadlift and the elephant bar enough for you guys to get involved in the discussion in this video. But basically what has happened is the Arnolds announced their events not long ago, Christmas Day. I think the athletes got them and we found them out a few days later. And the Arnolds, if you don't know, is the first weekend of March. So not very far away, about 6 weeks' time. And yeah, it starts off with a max elephant bar deadlift, as the Arnold often does. Now, Thor Bjornsson holds the current record at around about 472, 473. I can never remember exactly which one it is, but it's around the early 470s on this bar, which is mega, mega impressive. And the Arnolds are not just offering a bounty to break that record, they are offering a bounty when you hit the 501 mark. And remember how far that amount of weight is just to go from 472-ish to 501. It's going to be a hell of an ask. And I think the Arnolds and Rogue have done this because they are sick and tired of this 505 talk, the same as a lot of us are in strongman. And me personally, I'm personally sick of suits. And I know a lot of people share that opinion. I think deadlifts going forward should be belts and straps. That's about it. Just like the Arnold and Rogue are doing it. And I think they are trying to push the 501 on the elephant bar deadlift, obviously, because it's going to bring a hell of a lot of eyes to the Arnolds and Rogue, but also it's going to take away the talk from suited deadlifts quite so much, because a lot of the shows now are tending towards raw, suitless deadlifts. So no suit, just strapped and a belt. And hopefully by bringing up the record raw to meet the record suited, we can finally get away from suits and 505 talk and everything and move towards more of a raw deadlift, which I know is a very controversial thing. I've made a video before about suits versus raw. Feel free to leave your opinions in the comments below, but I think strongman suits just help a bit too much to be true to strongman. But anyway, yeah, Rogue put out a post with the Arnolds saying that there is a bounty on the 501 kilo deadlift on the elephant bar. So it's 501 kilo or more on the elephant bar deadlift for $101,000, which is a unbelievable amount of money. And they put this announcement out not too long ago, with the Arnolds possibly 7-8 weeks away from the announcement, which is not long enough, in my opinion, to prep for a full deadlift record attempt. But because a lot of the athletes were prepping for a max deadlift anyway, perhaps we do get close to the 501 in this competition. Obviously, this bounty isn't just for this competition, as I understand it. It's going to carry forward until someone does break that record, which makes me think we might get a max elephant bar deadlift at the Rogue Invitational later this year for the athletes to have another shot at it. But I think there are only really a few men on the planet that have a legitimate chance with the right prep to go and pull 501 kilo raw. So without further ado, let's go through who I think those are and whether or not I think they have a chance at the Arnolds or indeed later in the year. So the first name that is flying around, and with good reason, is the current record holder, Thor Bjornsson. He is possibly the only man that everyone thinks has a realistic and legitimate chance of doing it, even possibly at the Arnolds in a few weeks' time. He's prepping for a max deadlift anyway. He holds the current suited record. He holds the current elephant bar record. So he seems like the man to place your bets on, and I completely agree. He is just in a league of his own with deadlifting right now. But we will see how his deadlift is looking. He recently pulled 455 in training, and honestly, for Thor standards, it was a little slow. It wasn't certainly 501 record territory, but we will see how he manages to bring it back through to the Arnolds. And I think at the Arnolds this year, Thor is probably better off going for the deadlift, because with two overhead events, he is not going to be pushing for the win quite as easily as he thought he might be. Obviously, the behind the back press is looking much better for Thor, and his pressing in general seems to be getting better. But I think he has much more of a legitimate shot of getting a hell of a lot of money from the deadlift. So, I mean, in true Thor fashion, he's probably going to go for both. He's probably going to try do the deadlift and try and win the competition. But I think for me, the Arnold's is just a bit too close in time for Thor to prepare properly. He was prepping for a max suited deadlift for an event that fell through, and the switch to Raw in such a short amount of time just might not be doable. But certainly, if anyone is going to do it at the Arnold's, I think it is going to be Thor. And I think 100% if we see a max elephant bar later in the year at, say, the Rogue Invitational or even the Arnold's next year with this same bounty, I think Thor's going to do it. I think he's going to dedicate the time, and I think he is the man on the planet to do it. Now, another name that has been flying around the internet for this record, which I think is absolutely fair and square, is Trey Mitchell. And a lot of people are immediately shooting Trey Mitchell down based on his previous elephant bar deadlift numbers. But Trey is a notorious underestimator of himself. And when it's choosing your own numbers, he tends to lowball them and make each rep look easier than the last. Now, recently on a max deadlift, which let me say was a max suited deadlift that Trey Mitchell chose to pull raw, he pulled 470 kilo for the standard bar raw deadlift record. So standard bar suitless deadlift record. So if Trey Mitchell can pull 470 on a self-admitted bad prep coming back from injury towards the World Deadlift Championships, so you can pull 470 raw there with the confidence built and a much better prep going into the Arnolds. Who's to say Trey Mitchell can't pull 501? Now, obviously, a 30 kilo jump from 470 up to 501 raw is a hell of an ask. But I think if Trey has the confidence, has a much better prep, we could see Trey pulling close to that 501. Certainly, I think he has the ability at this Arnold's to break the current elephant bar deadlift record. Whether he manages to get to 501, I don't quite know. But I think certainly he's going to be up there in the 470s on the elephant bar. I'm gonna say it. I don't think he's gonna get 501. I just think it's a hell of a weight, especially to do Raw. But similarly to Thor, I think give Trey a full long prep leading into say the Rogue Invitational or something later in the year, knowing that this bounty is on the line. I think Trey Mitchell has a very, very solid shot as someone who never deadlifts in a suit, always in deadlifting Raw. I think he's one of the men that could definitely do it. Now, I think those two are probably our best chance at seeing this 501 Elephant Bar Deadlift Raw. There are a few other names flying around the internet. Obviously, Rauno Hainler has thrown his hat into the ring, saying give him a proper prep, invite him as a record breaker. And I think that's fair enough. Rauno holds pretty much every deadlift record on every variation, barring the Elephant Bar and the Standard Bar. He has the Masters record. He is a phenomenal deadlifter. One of the guys slated to pull 505 suited, but I don't know where his raw deadlift stacks up compared to his suited deadlift. I think give him a long enough prep and he could be up there, over 1,000 pounds on the Elephant Bar. I just don't know if he has quite what it takes to get to that 501 mark. And unfortunately for Rauno, he is not really in a position to get invited to something like the Arnolds or the Rogue Invitational unless they do a record breakers on this type of event. So I'm not sure if he'll get the chance. I really hope he does, and I really hope he proves me wrong. But I don't think it's really on the cards for him at the minute, which is unfortunate to say. And then another name that's flying around as someone who could possibly give it a crack is Austin Andrade. Obviously, he pulled 430 odd Raw at the World Deadlift Championships a couple years ago, and then chucked on a suit this year and basically locked out 470 and then fell over with it. Austin is an absolute powerhouse, an absolute monster, and I think give him a few years, he could definitely be up there in contention for something like an Elephant Bar deadlift record. But I think at the current stage, especially for this Arnold's and the rest of this year, I think it is just a little bit out of reach. I think he'll do very, very well on the deadlift, but I don't think it's going to be 501 well. But again, hope he proves me wrong. I love Austin. I love their YouTube channel, the Texas Boys. So if you are watching this and you haven't checked them out, Austin and Nick over there, fantastic strongman channel. Absolutely love it. But I think 501 is just a little bit out of reach for Austin right now. And I really hope he proves me wrong. But that is just my opinion. So obviously there are loads of other names people are chucking around. People who have gone for 505 in the past. People who are pulling big numbers raw. But I think those are the main ones where I've seen them a lot. And there's only really two there, in my opinion, that have a legitimate shot in the next year. But as for anyone pulling it at the Arnold coming up in 8 weeks or 6 weeks now, 8 weeks from the announcement, I just don't think so. I think we could definitely see a new Elephant Bar record, something in the 480s maybe, at late 470s, early 480s. But I just don't think anyone goes to 501 this year. I think Thor might give it a crack. And if he gets it, I won't be surprised. I'll be shocked, but I won't be like, how on earth has he done that? Because it's Thor. You never count him out on a deadlift. It's like counting out Mitchell Hooper for anything. You just don't do it. And I think if Trey switches on and picks his numbers correctly again, he could give it a very good crack. But I think it's more likely we'll see an Elephant Bar deadlift record that's not 501, in my opinion. But I would love for the Rogue Invitational to do a max Elephant Bar deadlift, to give these guys a long enough prep and a long time to prep for it and just actually give it a really, really good attempt, because I think we could see it go with a long enough prep and a long enough training cycle for these guys, because some of them are absolute beasts at deadlifting. Honestly, the depth of field of these athletes these days is just ridiculous. I mean, it's not just talking about one deadlift specialist anymore. There's a few names who could do incredibly, incredibly well. Obviously, we're not even talking about Mitch Hooper in this video. I just think Mitch gets a lot out of a suit, and I don't think his raw deadlift is anywhere near what it needs to be. But again, you never count Mitch out for anything. So if Mitch just turns up randomly and pulls 501, I mean, are you going to be like, oh, that's really shocking? I'm going to be like, oh, no, it's Mitch. He just does what he does. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Mitch is more likely to pull 505 at the World Deadlift Championships this year in a suit, because, I mean, he was the closest last year. He got it to his knees and he wasn't even training for it. So give him a good prep, and I think he could do it at the World Deadlift Champs. And I just hope that we see really good deadlifts this year. Deadlift is a fantastic event. I really hope we see everything real. But yeah, that is basically all of my thoughts on this 501 kilo bounty on the elephant bar deadlift. It's been a massive point of conversation over the last few weeks leading up to the Arnold. So I thought I'd go in here, throw my hat in the ring, give my thoughts. Obviously, I'm no expert on all of this. I just like to think I know what I'm talking about because I am a massive strongman nerd and I watch everything strongman related. So hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, please be sure to go down below, click the like button, and please let me know in the comments below, one, if I missed anyone out of the conversation. Two, if you think I'm wrong and someone is going to deadlift 501 at the Arnolds, let me know. And three, if you think that suits are a waste of time or they are a necessary part of strongman. Let me know all of those things. But obviously, if you're new here, as I said, go down below, click subscribe so you can stay up to date with all the videos we do here on the channel. Obviously, we talk a lot of pro strongman here, but I am also an amateur strongman. I am currently prepping for Oxfordshire's Strongest Man, and we are having a blast doing it. So I upload all my training content as well. This is obviously just the Toby Lively channel. I give my thoughts, I do my training, I have some fun. This channel is my baby, and I absolutely love it. So thank you guys once again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.